my name is Jessica Bocci-Dean. I'm the Director of Marketing for AIM Transportation Solutions. Thank you for joining us today for this panel discussion on women in the transportation industry. I will be your moderator for the next hour. I want to start out by giving you the agenda for this session. To begin, I'll give you a brief introduction onto why we're holding this panel. We'll introduce each of the panelists and let them explain a little bit about their history. I'll ask each of the panelists a series of 5 questions designed to learn about how they've achieved success despite the odds. We'll open up the panel to questions from the audience. If you want to ask a question, you can either raise your hand or you can and then ask the question verbally, or you can type the question into the Q&A function on your Zoom application. It would be either at the top or the bottom of your screen that says Q&A. Once you type the question, and you can type it in at any point during the session, and we'll hold the questions and ask them at the end. At the end of the very end of the session, then we'll have a brief closing statement, and we should be done well within the hour. So today we're here to tap into the topic of females in the transportation industry, an industry that is only 15% female. As a member of this 15% myself, this topic definitely hits home for me. I'm very fortunate to work at a company that focuses on inclusion and has a strong culture of support. I don't often think too much about how I'm the only woman in many of the meetings I'm a part of, or how the majority of my peers are male. I don't think about it because I work with such a fantastic group of people that don't make me feel like an outsider. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't times where I'm aware that I'm in the minority, and sometimes being different isn't fun. And that's why I'm so excited about this panel discussion today, not just for me, but for all of the women out there in this industry who might be feeling isolated, feeling like they're the oddball, or thinking that they've reached their ceiling because of their gender. To let them hear from the women who have really made it in the transportation industry. These are the women I look up to, and I'm so grateful that they're all here today. I also think this is a really good opportunity for women who are not in the transportation industry to hear from us. There is so much opportunity. America's supply chain needs smart, hardworking, and motivated people of all genders, including women, in order to sustain. We're going through a crisis with a driver shortage and technician shortage. The supply of people in these positions does not meet the demand, and many women don't consider these jobs. Starting pay for some drivers' positions is in the 6 figures. Technician pay isn't far behind. For women out there struggling, I say to you, think about getting your CDL or going to school to become a diesel technician, and don't pass over an IT position or an admin job, which is where I started, because it says trucking or logistics in the job title, and you think it sounds like a job for a man. I can assure you there is room for you in this industry. There's an opportunity for you to be part of something you can take pride in and better yourself through. Our female panelists today are great examples of these scenarios when things go right. These women are at the top of their fields. So that's why we're here today, to be inspired by their success. So hello to my panelists. I want to start out by introducing Leah Shaver. Leah is the president and CEO of the National Transportation Institute, the NTI, the trucking industry subject matter experts on professional driver wages, best practices, and programs. And in 2019, Leah joined the lineup of talk radio hosts on Sirius XM's Road Dog Trucking Radio. Recognized as a top woman to watch in transportation, Leah is a subject matter expert on driver compensation and strategies addressing driver recruiting, retention, and the development of the driver candidate pool. Leah's resume is incredibly impressive, and I'm so thrilled to have her on today. Next up, we have Wendy Payne. Wendy is an account executive for Cummins. Wendy has been with the company for more than 28 years of experience. Her career started in purchasing, where she established critical relationship skills while being a customer. She has since applied those lessons throughout her career in various customer-facing roles within Cummins. Next, we have someone who I have personally been inspired by throughout my career and is incredibly impressive, Jane Clark, the Vice President of Member Services at National Lease. Jane, do you want to go ahead and take the wheel on this one?
But I think most importantly, one of my favorite things that I do is really reaching out to those members and asking a lot of questions and listening to find out what we can do to support them and continue to provide value help their businesses grow, find ways to help them increase market share and decrease cost in their organization. So I really feel like my role primarily is to listen and to try to then make a way to provide the things that I hear our members say that they need to help their businesses grow.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jane. Next, we are moving on to Kim Beck. Hi, Kim. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I feel super honored to be asked to be on this panel with all of these amazing women. I'm with Cottingham and Butler, and I'm Vice President in Employee Benefits Consulting. We are a brokerage and consulting firm with several other divisions and companies underneath the Cottingham and Butler umbrella, focusing primarily in the transportation industry. We provide insurance and consulting services, safety services, claim services. We have a wellness, health, and well-being company. And I'm going on almost 20 years with them now. And for the past probably 16 years working exclusively with transportation companies and helping them to structure their employee benefits programs to be the most competitive package of benefits they can afford to offer to their employees within the transportation world, which is no easy task. We also set up and structure health and wellness programs. And I work with companies on benchmarking their benefit programs and recruiting and retention strategies for drivers. So I love the transportation industry. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation with you all. And I will also say that being in insurance, and especially in trucking, on the trucking side of things, there's not very many females that do what I do, and we need more. So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
I agree, Kim, and there aren't many women that do what any of us do, so it's incredible company to be around. And then last but not least, I'm going to introduce the woman who actually hired me at AIM, Patty Durkin, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer at AIM Transportation Solutions. Hello, Patty. How are you?
Good, thank you. And thank you for hosting this with us today, Jess, especially during Women in History Month. I think that's all the more exciting to have it. And I knew I was going to get the best introduction, being that Jess and I work together. So I thank you for that. And like everyone said, it is an honor to be with these women on this panel. And I hope all of you out there, get something from this meeting today or webinar today. What we do at AIM Transportation Solution and what I do, I've just been recently named Chief Human Resource Operator. So I'll tell you a little bit later how I came up in this field. But my job as a human resource person in transportation makes it a little bit more exciting. So in human resource, I'm not usually the only woman. It is more predominantly women's field. So that's good. But on the transportation side, it's not, and just to have 15%. So it's awesome for me to come into a field like this. I don't feel, like Jess said, I don't feel often that that's what my role is, that I'm the only one in the room. However, we always want to stop. I think everybody on the panel would say we want to stop being the first. We want to stop being the first. And we want to get that number up. So what AIM does, we have an AIM integrated, AIM transportation. So an AIM integrated, we have a lot of drivers, about 350, 400 drivers. And leasing, we do more mechanics. So we do full leasing, as well as, all the maintenance for companies, and then 3PL, which is our broker service. So there's a lot of things that we put under our umbrella. And as I came into this field, most of the people had been here long. It's, a young company that everybody has been with our owners. Or Tom Fleming started the business and have been with him quite a while. So it was great coming on board as the first and then to grow into this. So I look forward to all the rest of your questions, Jess.
Thank you, Patty. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the fun stuff. We're going to ask the questions and then ask that each of the panelists kind of give us their own take and interact with each other throughout the question answering process. So first question, How long have you been in the transportation industry and how did you get into it? I'm going to start this question with Jane. Jane?
Sure. So I've been in the transportation industry now going on 12 years. And how I got into it really, it started when I decided to make a career change. So I was in the staffing and recruiting industry for about 15 years. And if any of you, and Patty knows as well, in that industry, it's a high burnout, high turnover kind of industry. I think the average is somewhere around 3 years, and I'd been there for 15. So I just felt like it was time to make a change, and honestly, just answered an ad on LinkedIn for the position that I have now. And that was about 12 years ago, and here I am today. I knew not one thing about trucks, not one thing about truck leasing at the time, and have had a tremendous opportunity just to learn so much in the last 12 years.
That's amazing. And I would have never known, knowing you as long as I have, that you wouldn't have come from transportation from the beginning. You've certainly adapted quickly. So that's incredible. How about you, Wendy? Wendy, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I was trying to get the mute button. I didn't know I was going to be next. So, so as I mentioned in my introduction, that it's only been 5 years for me in transportation of the 28 that I've spent with Cummins, fortunately. And how I really got into this role was I continued to grow and develop my customer facing experience in other various markets within Cummins. Cummins does, a lot of different markets, from everything from marine and oil and gas, lots of industrial kind of markets. And I was mostly on that side of the business. But what I was working for, trying to earn the opportunity, as we all know, the on-highway business is Cummins bread and butter for over 100 years. So I really wanted to work my way here and was given the opportunity. I think Cummins has because they're so large, right? They've given me the opportunity to move around in various roles and get that experience. So I've been fortunate to be part of a large company that allows that and promotes women. They really do. So I'm very lucky that way.
That's very great. And obviously Cummins is an incredible organization to be part of. So great success story. How about you, Leah?
This is my 21st year in the trucking industry. I started as a professional driver recruiter, and I loved my job matching folks with what I thought would be a lifelong job for them. And I was typically right, so much so that volume hiring wasn't really my priority, which is typically required in recruiting. So I shifted over to a strictly HR focus, primarily in terms of looking for long-term retention. I spent 14 years managing human resources, risk management, benefits, driver recruiting, and retention. And 7 years ago, after having known the founder of NTI for a couple of years, I suggested to him that compensation and benefit data is vital to the industry and would be best paired with solutions to recruit and retain. So today I own the company, and we serve information and support to companies that employ drivers and technicians all over the world, providing them with solutions to recruit, to retain, the very same ideals that I had when I started in the industry 21 years ago.
Well, if ever there is a story that would inspire young women out there, I think that is certainly it. So very impressive. Patty, how about you?
Well, so at AIM, I've been here about 16 years, but the ironic part is I started in transportation between my junior and senior year in high school. I had gone to a vocational school, which is also, so I went to a Catholic school, and going to vocational school also wasn't a popular thing to do. But I went into a moving van line company in between jobs. And so I started with them and worked for them for about 5 years, and then got out of that position and went into a few other positions. Prior to coming to AIM, I actually worked in the tire industry. So it was a tire manufacturing, and that was a lot more male predominant than transportation is, I will tell you. I was definitely by myself in every meeting, no matter where I went in that. But when I came to AIM, I came as a manager for human resource, And at that time, we only had about 300 employees. We didn't have the 3PL. We still, we had the integrated and leasing. So we still, rent trucks and do the leasing and full service leasing. And now we're up to about 1,100 employees in 15 to 20 states. We keep adding them. So about 4 years after I came here, I became vice president. And then, as I said recently, became chief human resource officer. So the transportation industry, it is definitely male dominated, but like Kim is one of my vendors that I work with, right? So as our broker, excellent. Jane and I talk all the time because, and not all the time, but and then she puts out the newsletter and stuff. So I'm constantly involved in what she does. So that's where I came in and hope to leave the industry in transportation.
Well, I have to say, as someone at AIM, a female at AIM, watching your career growth and your recent promotion to chief officer has been incredible to watch, and is definitely an inspiration to me, and shows me what's possible and that there is no ceiling. So I appreciate you for that. And then last but not least, Kim Beck. Kim?
Yeah, so thanks for the kind words, Patty. I love what I do so much. And I will tell you, 16, 17 years ago, I started with Cunningham & Butler almost 20 years ago, but it took a couple of years before I realized my calling in the transportation segment. I came in with over 10 years of health insurance and just general insurance experience before I started here. But what I learned right away is that our company has, at the time, over 2,000 trucking company customers. And we had lots of guys running around, males, selling insurance and consulting on those types of services for transportation. None of them really understood or knew how to sell or talk through employee benefits. And they brought me in and said, hey, would you be interested in riding around with some of our transportation guys and helping them, talk about what we have to offer on the employee benefits side, because we don't really have anyone focused there. So I said, absolutely. And I learned really quickly, and I think Leah can probably attest to this, that benefits and pay on the transportation side look very different than employee benefits do in the general industry, all other types of employers and industries out there. And so I quickly found an opportunity for us to really be able to focus in on that. And we started a national annual survey of benefits and compensation going on 14 years now, where we're able to really get granular on some of those types of programs that companies are offering and how they compare within trucking specifically. And it's been a great journey, and I enjoy every day of what I do. And we've also kind of expanded into the wellness world in trucking as well. So it's been ever evolving, but that's my start and how I got into it. And that's how I met Patty.
Well, that's incredibly impressive. And that's a side I don't have as much transparency to. So it's really cool to hear your perspective on how all of that works. So I appreciate you being here today. So let's move on to question number 2. And that question is, have you found it challenging to work within an industry that's only 15% female? And how have you excelled in that environment? Patty, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So I don't find it as much challenging because and mostly it's probably because of my human resource background. So AIM, as you and I have talked about before, Jess, we are extremely supportive here of each other. Again, when I said in my introduction, all the other vice president, I came in as a manager, and all the other vice presidents, people that had started with Tom Fleming had been here quite a while. So really it was getting into that, it was about the 4th year I was here when I became vice president. I was very proud of that, because now that's when you see that you have your worth, but all of those people around me helped me get here. And so including my team. So it just happens that my director is another female. And I don't think my team would ever tell you anything different. I don't think anyone on my team feels that being a female is a hard thing to do. Now, I will say that's my perspective on it. I think the drivers and mechanics have a little bit more of a challenge, and it's our job to make that easier for everybody. And to get, the people in the field involved in that. But it is such a good career. It is such a good industry. I think the industry in itself, it's such a growing field for both wages for people and, women primarily. We're, as HR and recruiting, we are actually seeking them. And so they do kind of get stolen a little bit. Recently, because the Women in History Month, AIM did a little bit of a video on a few of our people in different fields. And one of the truck drivers, her name's Jackie, that works with us, that's what she said. This is a great field for people to get in. That income is so good. And I think it's so important for women to know how that is. So again, my challenge wasn't too bad just because of the support that I get here at AIM from everybody.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of a good segue into Leah, just because you're more involved with the recruiting of the drivers and dealing with the wage situation.
Yeah, so there's two parts to the question. One is, did I find it challenging, or do I find it challenging to work within an industry that is where, women have been the minority? And certainly, yes, I did. I was only one of two female leaders at a company for many years. I'm only at my second big girl job. And my first job was for 14 years, and I love the company. And again, I was one of two female leaders. And so, that was quite an experience. Women communicate differently, we lead differently, we work differently. And it trained me very well to understand what happens in companies all over the world where women are a minority. And then when I first started working for NTI, I was advising trucking companies on strategies to recruit and retain, and I was often the only woman in the boardroom. So while I seem confident now, it's because I propelled through those stages while also pioneering and advocating for more women in leadership roles. I did that as a board member for Women in Trucking, so certainly I was well supported by my peers, but I promise you I did not start that way. And as far as how I navigated that, early in my career, I held really firm in those idealistic beliefs. And remember, I didn't focus on volume, but on longevity as a driver recruiter, which is the opposite of what you're supposed to do. And so as I continued to excel, I found that it was often by saying yes to every opportunity, yes to new responsibilities, yes to changing roles, and yes to even what felt really difficult at the time, and that was expanding from serving one company to companies that are all over the world.
Well, Leah, and I'll jump in. One thing that you have over all of us, and I'm very impressed by, is you're an owner, a female owner of a business, and that's just one more level of just respect that we have for you.
Thank you. And I'll say, also scary, right?
Right.
When there's a lot of responsibility to, not just my family, my growing family, by the way, I'm 8 months pregnant, but also to all of the folks that we employ that also have families that want to grow and change the world and have the same idealistic beliefs. So I really appreciate that call out, Patty. Thank you.
Very, very nice. Jane, how about you?
Yeah, definitely. There were challenges coming to work in this industry. As you may recall, I said I came from staffing and recruiting, which is predominantly female. And certainly, I think Leah said it very well. Women have a different style of communication. I'll give you one story. I remember early on, probably in my first or second month of working at National Lease, and quite often I'm the only woman in the room, very often, in fact. And I was in this meeting also the only woman. And a couple of the people in this meeting just started getting into it, raising voices, pounding on tables. They had a disagreement. They were vocally letting each other know they did not agree. And the meeting ended, and one of the people that was involved in this said, "Okay, everybody ready to go to lunch?" And I was shocked because I was sitting there the whole time with, trying not to betray the fact that I was just, I couldn't believe what was happening. I thought someone was getting fired for sure at this meeting, right? Because of raised voices and table pounding and that kind of thing that would have never happened in my previous industry. So, I learned that there's a different style, that if women were doing that, that would be a very, very different outcome than going to lunch afterwards, right? So I think that was, it was eye-opening to me. Some of the communication styles are different. Some of the ways that they relate to each other as men are different. And I had to kind of learn that almost like a new language to understand, what were the meanings behind it. It's very different. Leadership is very different. Mentoring and working with employees, with my staff, those kinds of things were very different than what I was used to. And not that one way is right or wrong, it was just different. And I had to really learn that. And I think that was one of the things when the second part of the question is, how have you been able to excel? It's just by listening, adapting, but not, I don't know quite how to say this, like maybe adapting my style, but not the substance behind it. Like there are still messages that I want to convey. There are still things I believe in that are important to me. And I'm not going to necessarily change those, but maybe the way that I can communicate those can be different to make sure that I'm being heard in that environment and make sure that I'm hearing others in the way that they are intending. So it certainly has been challenging. There have been other, situations, of course, that are challenging when you're the only woman in the room. But I think much like what Patty and Jessica have said, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of just tremendous people, the owners of many of our member companies. Really, I think kind of took me under their wing and taught me a lot, and in a very respectful and just it was a great learning experience, like I mentioned before. So there has been a lot of support and a lot of people that have been very willing to teach me, mentor me, work with me. But certainly there are times that I have to step back and figure out what's going on around me in a way that I didn't have to do when I was around mostly women.
I definitely have that perspective as well. So I do feel good hearing you say that, because it definitely sums up how I feel at times. So thank you for that. Kim, how about you?
I find being a female as an advantage in my industry for a couple of reasons. It's a little different probably than for you guys, but the main one being that the majority of the customers that we work with, we're dealing with and working most heavily with the human resources teams, which in contrast to trucking in general are primarily women. Not always, but they're more likely to be women on the human resources team. So without stereotyping, I think women just naturally have a little bit more empathy in life about certain situations and can relate a little better on the human side of things. So when it comes to even recruiting drivers and retaining drivers and communicating benefits and compensation to them, there's a different level of comfort and somewhat trust when someone's dealing with a woman versus a male. We tend to be a little softer in our approach to communicating things and explaining things, which I think somebody who's coming on board appreciates. But also I think we're a little more detail oriented and care to take the tiny little details of something and make those important. And hone in on them and fine tune what we're putting in front of our employee populations to make sure that it feels good, looks good, and really communicates your overall culture and objectives for what you're trying to promote as a company. And so, especially with drivers, a lot of the drivers being male, many times it's their wives at home that are the ones dealing with the benefits at their company, right? They take their benefit package home and show the wives. And so, just thinking through things from a perspective of who's your audience, I think we as females have just a more innate ability to do that better. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I feel like that's an advantage. It's worked for me. Also, I think becoming really technical about what we do and being able to articulate that, because I will say that when I first got started and I was traveling around with our team, mostly men, and I would walk in the door to a trucking company, it would be a CEO or a CFO, typically men. Oh, what is she going to try to sell us today? You know, what does she know? You kind of get that immediate, like, first impression of, oh, they're bringing in the cute little sales girl, you know. And then as soon as they realize, actually, she does know her stuff really well. She's technical. She understands trucking. They kind of give you a oh, wow, okay. And I think that's given me an advantage as a female, where a guy coming in with the same level of knowledge and experience would be just so what, he's another person doing what everybody else does. So I see it as an opportunity and an advantage versus a challenge. I'm not going to say there haven't been challenges. There's lots of challenges. Just the simple fact that we have to put on makeup and do our hair and probably spend an hour out of our day grooming that men don't have to do means we have to work harder and fit more time into a work day than men. I think we just, you know, have those challenges as well. So
I could not agree with that specific challenge anymore. So I'm glad that you brought that point up. Wendy, how about you?
So as you all talked about, I've been reflecting and thinking about how would my answer be different after hearing yours, all of yours. But I think I've not been challenged being accepted in the industry like I thought I would be going into it. I think for several reasons. One, I think Cummins, because of how they embrace inclusion, whatever I'm trying to say, is one piece of it. But outside of Cummins, working with customers like AIM, they have embraced me and helped me learn the industry. And it's been so great working with these customers and national lease members. Jane, several of the members have, helped me learn the industry. So that's the other part of that. I haven't been challenged that way, but I think also my background, I think I was more challenged early in my career when I was in oil and gas, even less women. And I had similar stories like Jane has had with being in a meeting and guys yelling to try to get their message across and fist pounding. And then they're like, okay, where are we going for a beer? Right. It is. And you kind of take a step back because it was women, we'd be like, all right, we're going our separate ways and we need to take some time to process. Right. So I think that prepared me too for a role in transportation. But it's been an easier definitely an easier transition than I had in the back of my mind coming into it, for sure. So, but I think too, some of you said that I didn't ever go in thinking I wanted to go in with confidence, but I never went in pretending to know it all. And Jane, you mentioned in the listening with empathy and those kinds of things, and that had always been my approach. And if I didn't know the answer, I didn't pretend to know the answer, but I'd be resourceful enough to get back, with the customers quickly, in a timely manner with the responses. So that's kind of my story. And I think how I've excelled is this learning and with all the great people surrounding me and helping me learn the industry.
The thread of commonality in all of your answers, I think, has been communication style and just learning to adapt the way you communicate to an all-male audience. And I find that to be true myself, that, males just communicate differently. And when you're in a male dominant situation, you kind of adapt your communication style and learn how to, fit in that way. And I think that does lend itself to helping you advance. So I think all of you really nailed it with that one. So we will move on to question number 3. And if there's anyone, does anyone want to, and the question is, what is the favorite part? What is your favorite part of your job? Does anyone want to volunteer to start? Leah?
Sure. My quick answer is what's not to love. And if there's one goal that all of the women that I mentor or have mentored is to find something that you really love, right? Because you're just going to enjoy it that much more, and so much more of yourself comes through in your work. And that's something that I'm very proud of for myself. I think that a lot of me really comes through in my work and in different types of work that I do. One example, I work as a talk radio host for Sirius XM, and talk about working outside of my comfort zone. Before I started with Sirius, and it's been like 2.5, 3 years, I worked really hard to filter myself. And what I mean by that is, when you're the only woman in the room, I've personally felt that I should mute my femininity, that I should make sure the folks that are listening are focused on our data and our results and not on me personally. However, working in talk radio on a live show where your only ratings are based on call volume, and that you have to drop some of your guard and share more of yourself so that people want to call and engage, they want to see your experiences, your passions, your ideals. And so I tell people, I have an opinion, just ask me. Being asked for your opinion and how you can help others to grow. I think that that's certainly something that I really love. Mentoring panels like this, learning from other leaders that I admire, saying yes to new opportunities, and then learning about so many specialized niches that are within trucking. We support professional drivers and technicians by providing their company with crucial benchmarking and support so that they can make critical decisions. And, one of the things that's so astounding to me is that we track pay and programs for over 600 cities in North America. It's all different job descriptions, and you can continue to love promoting a vast array of career choices and opportunities that are available to everyone. So I can talk about that with women, with young students that we hope will grow into the industry, with men, and as I say on air, with you and you.
Absolutely. Patty, how about you?
I'm with Leah. I like pretty much everything in my job. I like a lot of the things that the opportunity gives me. So it's nice. Our recruiting director always says it's an honor to recruit, right? Because you're recruiting to change someone's family life. And it's the same thing with benefits. Like Kim said, a lot of times when I go out, when we're talking to the field, we also say, and if your significant other wants to call, we will answer her questions as well. And the guys get a big laugh out of that. They're like, and they're very relieved. One of my very favorite things that I like to do, though, is go out to the new accounts that we get. So like through acquisition and stuff. And we do that both on the integrated and leasing side. So it's meeting new companies and see how they do their business and how they can come into our culture, which is really a very much family oriented company. And so we just have that agility. We are so flexible. So I think going out and talking to those people and sharing their views and seeing how they can incorporate themselves into us is probably by far the favorite thing about my job. I also do like that I have, become like several of the other women have said, the professional associations that I'm in, like SHRM, going to those conferences. And then I am on the board for the United Way, so that I get that opportunity to also do those philanthropical things as well. So I do appreciate all that as well.
Wendy, how about you?
Sure, I'll make mine short and sweet. My favorite part is meeting the new people, like everyone here today, right? Meeting the new people in the industry and earning some of my new customers, earning their trust, and just by being transparent and listening and helping them grow their business. When I see I've made some contribution to help any of them grow, then that's what I enjoy most.
Good answer. Kim, how about you?
Yeah, I think what I love most about this part of what I do in trucking is that it's trucking's 24/7, right? It doesn't ever sleep. And I'm high energy. I like to be challenged, and there's a lot of problem solving and coming up with solutions and ideas to help customers as part of what I do. So I think I love that the most. And I will say, just in general in trucking, it's always changing, it's always moving. So if you're a female who enjoys a challenge and enjoys being in a high energy environment, trucking is ideal. And there's so many opportunities for women in this. And I know we're going to get into this, but for me, it's the energy and the fast-paced environment.
And last but not least, Jane, what's your favorite part of your job?
So I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to get out and travel, not as much in the last couple of years, but we're getting back to that a little bit. Get out and travel and meet our members in their place, in the place where they work and live, and learn about what their real challenges are, what their day-to-day challenges, what's happening, and what are the opportunities, and then bring that information back to my team. And I have the absolute dream team that work with me, and I'm so fortunate to have them. But I'll bring my notes back and sit down with my team, and we'll just brainstorm of how can we solve these problems for our members? What can we do? How can we support them? How can we add some value to them and come up with ideas and solutions that we can then present to our members? So I love meeting with the members, but I also love being able to take that full circle and then provide an actual solution that helps support them in their businesses.
Well, it's very inspiring to hear so much positivity around how everyone feels about what they do. And I think that kind of Leah said it really concisely, where it's about putting yourself into it and finding the aspects that you love and gravitating towards those and growing yourself through those areas. And I really like that you said that, Leah. We'll move on to question number 4. So where do you think the opportunity lies for women in the future of transportation? Kim, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, we are 80,000 drivers short in our industry right now. And it's approaching 100,000 by the end of 2022. And so I think the biggest opportunity in trucking, honestly, is we need more female drivers. And it's not an easy job. I recognize that. Sometimes the truck stops aren't super friendly to the female environment. However, I think as an industry, we're working on that. But we know statistically, women are more safe per mile than men, believe it or not. And so all the more reason to have more drivers behind the wheel of the truck. But just in general, there's so many great opportunities for women in trucking. We have, as an industry, started to embrace women so much more than we did when I first started in this business. And Leah, I'm sure you're seeing the same evolvement where we're being accepted more readily as being part of trucking. And men want women in trucking more, and women want to see more women in trucking. And it's all different positions, from administrative positions in an office. Recruiting is a big one. I think women recruiters are fantastic at getting drivers to open up and talk about what they're looking for in an opportunity and why our culture at AIM or wherever they're bringing them in is the great place to work. I think women tell good stories and can get people comfortable easier than sometimes than a man. So I'm stereotyping again, but it's an advantage, right? We should use it. But I think there's tons of opportunity in all aspects of what we're doing in trucking.
And I think that plays in great. I can't remember who said it, but talked about how women generally in their communication style have more empathy. And I think that does lend itself to recruiting and sales roles, where we have Trisha Mosser on right now, who's one of our female sales women and who's doing wonderfully. I think we're good listeners. We're good at that. And one thing I want to mention too is about the driving. We actually interviewed a couple female drivers this month, and Patty had brought up one of them, Jackie. She was talking about how she loved being out on the road and seeing other women drivers, and how it had really become like a community of them waving to each other and giving each other a thumbs up, and that she's seeing so many more now, and that there's, you know, a growing population of female drivers, and they're kind of really banding together in a way to build a community. So I think that was so cool to hear.
And
you know what,
Jessica, I want to piggyback on that for a minute. One thing I didn't say that's super important. It's an opportunity for women who don't have a college degree, whose kids are grown and looking for a second, you know, journey in life, to make potentially 6 figures driving a truck and getting out and seeing the world and traveling. You know, maybe they've been stuck at home for the last 10, 20 years. So I just think that's a huge opportunity.
That's a very awesome point, Kim. I agree. Leah, do you want to go from there?
Yeah, I checked to make sure I wasn't on mute. So As far as like where the opportunities lie, they're limitless when it comes to planting seeds for the future. Promotion and advocacy is something that we really still need to focus on as women in the industry today, already being in the industry, and then for folks that we're paving the way for in the future. Remember at NTI, I was saying that we see a multitude of jobs, of opportunities, of schedules and learning tracks for folks, starting as young as when they're in Girl Scouts, learning about trucking as at a Women in Trucking Girl Scout event. If you haven't done one, little girls get this Women in Trucking patch, and you can promote your company and your opportunities and the opportunities for women as early as when they're how old are young girls in Girl Scouts? I think our Girl Scout event was probably an average age of 8, maybe. And then, moving forward to integrating career technical education for techs and drivers with high schools through Next Gen. So there's so many opportunities, and they're limitless. And I think that pertains as well to our own advocacy and what we do for the future women in the industry.
And then I'll jump in, just one of the things, because I saw it on the chat that somebody was asking about how do we promote, because it is a very physical job, and how do we kind of overcome that? And I think, just like Kim said, there's 80,000 truck driving positions out there. And I think the important thing for a lot of the women is to find the proper company, so that it does have to be the right place for them. So we all obviously have been at our places a long time. So we found the right company. As far as physical, so a lot of the physical, a lot of how you arrange your facilities, all of that is important for us to do in advance of somebody coming, and so that they feel like they're more welcomed. So one of the statistics that I read so I'm sorry, and I jumped ahead. So going back onto the physical, I think there's every job, there's a lot of different trucking. Like at AIM, we do anything from steel to hauling groceries to paper products. So they do have to kind of fit in and know that they're physically able to do the job. I think sometimes the size of the truck intimidates some women also. So we just have to keep going out there and talking and being in the schools to let them know that. We do have a little bit of a disadvantage in the truck driving also because of the 21-year age. So we kind of miss that high school gap sometimes, but just getting them interested. And I just want to bring this up, is one of the statistics that women don't like driving is because the fear of the safety out there. So we mentioned before, women are safe drivers. It's a statistic. So that's a good thing. But them feeling safe out there is another bad statistic. And that's something that we, again, as an industry, I don't think there's anyone on this panel that isn't working on that part of it, and somehow or some way to change that.
To just spreading the knowledge of systems like a Bendix system or Netrodyne, where you have these software programs and these phone apps that have your back, that are protecting you from safety incidences that can exist on the road, and spreading knowledge about that.
Exactly. But you're talking 6-figure jobs. And like Kim said, I mean, with maybe just a high school education, if that. So I think it is important to, there's endless possibility here.
Jean?
Yeah, I echo everything that's been said. I think the opportunity is limitless in this industry. And one thing I'll bring up is National Lease is a partnership with Universal Technical Institute, and I serve on their program advisory committee. And so I get to go over and talk to the students. And there are not very many female students, but there are a few. And I'll tell you, they are inspiring. They're typically at the top of their class. They typically get fantastic jobs. In fact, I sat on a panel with one of their recent grads that was a woman. And I'm sitting on the panel, I'm almost in tears listening to her story. She was so inspiring. She graduated top of her class. She got her pick of so many different opportunities when she graduated. And she has already been promoted a couple of times just within a short amount of time. women can do that job, the technician job, they can do the driving job, they can do any of the jobs that are out there. I think Patty brings up a great point that you have to find the right place to do it, but those are all really good jobs, good pay, good benefits, a lot of opportunity to grow and advance in your career, like all of us on this panel have talked about already. So I think the sky's the limit, and women definitely have an opportunity to do great things in this industry.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Wendy.
Yeah, I'll just kind of piggyback off of everything you guys have all been saying. And I think what we also don't know is the emerging technology and how that's going to offer more opportunities, and what that really is. A ton of automation will make the trucks even more safe. And also we'll need different engineering and the I'm thinking of the power and how it's changing, and the battery electric and the hybrids, fuel and things like that. I mean, I think it's only expanding. The transportation industry in itself is going to be expanding with different opportunities that we don't know of today, even.
Absolutely. Even people with just technical training that have gotten technical degrees in computers and programming and stuff like that. I mean, there's going to be more and more of that as we go. So I think that's a really great point, Wendy. So we are kind of getting a little low on time. So this next question, we're going to sum it up in one sentence. So what advice would you give in one sentence to an 18 to 25-year-old woman, even yourself at that age, considering going into a career in the transportation industry? Leah, how about you?
I hate being restricted. I'll say that really quick. So say yes to every opportunity and networking. Every one of the women on this panel is now a part of your tribe. And if you haven't sent invites yet on LinkedIn, what are you waiting for? You have to position yourself to be in front of the leaders that you admire, to be able to ask questions. And if opportunities don't present themselves to you, you have to create them yourself.
Such good. I think that's really good advice. I'm glad you did not limit yourself.
It was more than one sentence.
It was worth it going over for sure. Jane, how about you?
I'll try to keep it to one sentence. If you have an interest in this industry and you see an opportunity, don't hesitate to take it.
Very good advice. Wendy.
You guys have already stolen what I would have said. Absolutely don't hesitate to take new opportunities while being confident and being resourceful. If you don't know the answers, don't pretend, right? Just be transparent and rely on your team to help you, and be dependent for your customers and in the industry.
And Kim, how about you?
I'll take a line from the Jerry Maguire movie. Dogs and bees can smell fear. So can men. So put your fear aside and put yourself out there. Be confident. Just seriously, just have no fear. That's the big thing, because that's step one in our business.
That is great advice. And last but not least, who I've gotten career advice from, so I know she knows what she's doing, Patty Durkin.
Well, exactly. You could come as a clerk and be a director. So again, education, don't stop once you get in. Don't fear the industry. Take your job, your profession serious. Be confident. Read up, get additional education, absolutely network, join those professional associations within the industry. There's so many out there, either by your profession or the industry itself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patty. So we had two questions come through on the chat function, and I think you panelists can see them as well. The first one's for Leah. Leah, can you see the question?
Yeah.
So the question is, for anyone who can't see it, for Leah's board member experience, what are some resources and/or organizations that employees in the transportation field should work with closer to better position themselves to attract women to our companies or industry?
Yeah, so really easy, Women in Trucking Association, become a corporate member and Part of the membership benefit is a resource guide for recruiting and a weekly newsletter, all kinds of tips from folks, just like me, all over the industry that are going to provide feedback from the association and its members to be able to do a really good job at that. And if you are in other industries that also operate within trucking, there's, for example, women in manufacturing and women, just search for those women groups. But the other thing I want to say that just is tangential to that is, if you don't have a women's group at your company, then you need to create one. And this is a very strong tool at both attracting and retaining women. We see women's groups still popping up even to this day. One of our longtime clients messaged me today. They're going to start a women's group. Women are attracted to companies where that inherent mentorship is available from within the organization. And so if it doesn't exist today, you can go out and join it externally, and you can also create it within your own organization.
That's great advice. And then the next question, also for Leah and for anyone else who wants to chime in, are there any best practices or creative ways that you have seen companies in the transportation industry demonstrate in order to appeal to women as a career? And I think you kind of just touched on that.
Yeah, in our presentations, I always have a slide on women, and the summary of what I would say is that you're going to attract what you reflect. So you need to reflect what you admire. If you admire a population of white middle-aged men that all look the same and have done the same job for your company for 30 years, that's what you're going to continue to attract. If you admire women and what they do, what they've achieved, and the women that are within your organization, promote them, focus on them, feature them in your campaigns and the opportunities, and more women, minorities, et cetera, will be attracted to the opportunities that you have.
Very good advice.
We also offer a great referral program. So women referring other women is a great program if they have a good referral program, so that they're bringing in like people also, right? So that's another good resource.
Yeah. And I should have said, for Women's History Month, we do a weekly blog, and it gets published in a monthly newsletter. And so for this month, every week we focused on women and strategies that companies are utilizing all across the industry. And so our website, driverwages.com, every week there's been a blog post about things just like this. And I think this week is about what it takes to attract women in the trucking industry. So you can check it out. I think it was published today.
We'll definitely check that out. And I just want to say in closing that we're going to take the recording from today and host it on all of our social media as well. Give it to Leah, our other panelists, and it'll be up on their websites and their social media as well. So feel free to check that out. Make sure you're following everyone on LinkedIn, following both their personal page and their company pages that we talked about today. A link to this video recording will be coming out to your email sometime tomorrow, and I'll include the contact information for each of our panelists if you would like to follow up with them personally if you had any further questions. And I just want to thank everyone so much for being here today, especially our panelists. These are truly women that inspire me and show me what's possible. And this is exactly how I want to celebrate Women's History Month, with women who are actively making history in the transportation industry. So thank you, ladies, not only for being here today, but for everything you do to inspire me, to inspire women across the industry. You guys are awesome, and you definitely set an incredible example. So thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.